Hello, and welcome to Shakespeare 2020 LA. Shakespeare 2020 LA is the Los Angeles division of Shakespeare Project 2020, a worldwide challenge created by Ian Desher to read the entire Shakespeare canon in 2020. Shakespeare 2020 is comprised of Los Angeles local professional actors, and this week we're including some very special guests from back east. Our reading today is Henry V, and our players are Jason Rennie, Christopher Carbo, Taylor Marr, Megan Wells, Ron Dorn, Chris Klein, Emily Vasilis, Caitlin McCormick, Elizabeth Juvenal, Lucas Nelson, Ben Birmingham, Michael Burkhart, Mark Tracy, Dave Demke, Laura Koval, Julie Measley Grossman, Elise Ashton. I'm Mary Carrick. In David Crystal's book, Think on My Words, Exploring Shakespeare's Language, Crystal comments, a distinction has to be drawn between difficulty of language and difficulty of thought. Simple language can express a complex thought. Shakespeare's thoughts are difficult to grasp, but this is not always because of the language that he uses. So in addition to the usual excitement that we have of exploring Shakespeare's language, this play this week has a good deal of French conversation and a smattering of Latin. We're fortunate to have among our players this week the accomplished Julie Measley Grossman and Elise Ashton to carry the French scenes and coach us through the rest of our pronunciations. Ultimately, it's our job as actors to mine the language and communicate the story. So sit back in that familiar easy chair. Let us know how we're doing, as our project is to please. As you from crimes would pardon be, let your indulgence set us free. To play. William Shakespeare's Henry V.
Oh, for a muse of fire that would ascend the brightest heaven of invention, a kingdom for a stage, princes to act, and monarchs to behold the swelling scene. Then should the warlike Harry, like himself, assume the port of Mars, and at his heels, leashed in like hounds, should famine, sword, and fire crouch for employment. But pardon gentles all, the flat and razed spirits that death dared on this unworthy scaffold to bring forth so great an object. Can this cockpit hold the vasty fields of France? Or may we cram within this wooden O the very casks that did affright the air at Agincourt? Oh, pardon, since a crooked figure may attest in little place 1,000,000, and let us, ciphers to this great account, on your imaginary forces work. Suppose, within the girdle of these walls, are now confined 2 mighty monarchies, whose high upreared and abutting fronts the perilous narrow ocean parts asunder. Piece out our imperfections with your thoughts. Into 1,000 parts divide one man and make imaginary puissance. Think, when we talk of horses, that you see them printing their proud hooves in the receiving earth. For 'tis your thoughts that now must deck our kings, carry them here and there, jumping o'er times, turning the accomplishment of many years into an hourglass, for the which supply. Admit me chorus to this history, who prologue-like your humble patience pray, gently to hear, kindly to judge our play.
Act 1, Scene 1. London, an antechamber in the King's Palace. Enter the 2 bishops of Canterbury and Ely.
My lord, I'll tell you that self-bill is urged, which in the 11th year of the last king's reign was like, and had indeed against us passed, but the scrambling and unquiet time did push it out of further question.
But how, my lord, shall we resist now?
It must be thought on. If it pass against us, we lose the better half of our possession. For all the temporal lands which men devout by testament have given to the church would they strip from us, being valued thus. As much would maintain to the king's honor full 15 earls and 1,500 knights, 6,200 good esquires, and to relief of lasers and weak age, of indigent faint souls past corporal toil, 100 almhouses right well supplied, and to the coffers of the king besides, £1,000 by the year. Thus runs the bill.
This would drink deep.
Would drink the cup and all.
But what prevention?
The king is full of grace and kind regard.
And a true lover of the Holy Church.
The courses of his youth promised it not. The breath no sooner left his father's body, but that his wildness, mortified in him, seemed to die too. Yea, at that very moment, consideration like an angel came and whipped the offending Adam out of him, leaving his body as a paradise, to envelop and contain celestial spirits. Never was such a sudden scholar made. Never came reformation in a flood, with such a heady current scouring faults, nor never hydra-headed willfulness so soon did lose his seat, and all at once, as in this king.
We are blessed in the change.
Hear him but reason in divinity, and all admiring with an inward wish, you would desire the king were made a prelate. Hear him debate of commonwealth affairs, you would say it hath been all in all his study. Let his discourse of war, and you shall hear a fearful battle rendered you in music. Turn him to any cause of policy, the Gordian knot of it he will unloose, familiar as his garter, that when he speaks, the air, a chartered libertine, is still, and the mute wonder lurketh in men's ears to steal his sweet and honeyed sentences, so that the art and practic part of life must be the mistress to his theoric, which is a wonder how his grace should glean it, since his addiction was to courses vain, his companies unlettered, rude, and shallow, his hours filled up with riots, banquets, sports, and never noted in him any study, any retirement, any sequestration from open haunts and popularity.
The strawberry grows underneath the nettle, and wholesome berries thrive and ripen best, neighbored by fruit of baser quality. And so the prince obscured his contemplation under the veil of wildness, which no doubt grew like the summer grass, fastest by night, unseen yet crested in his faculty.
It must be so, for miracles are ceased, and therefore we must needs admit the means, how things are perfected.
But my good lord, how now for mitigation of this bill urged by the commons? Doth his majesty incline it or no?
He seems indifferent, or rather swaying more upon our part than cherishing the exhibitors against us. For I have made an offer to his majesty upon our spiritual convocation, and in regard of causes now in hand, which I have opened to his grace at large as touching France, to give a greater sum than ever at one time the clergy yet did to his predecessor's part withal.
How did this offer seem received, my lord?
With good acceptance of his majesty, save that there was not time enough to hear, as I perceived his grace would fain have done, the severals and unhidden passages of his true titles to some certain dukedoms, and generally to the crown and seat of France, derived from Edward, his great-grandfather.
What was the impediment that broke this off?
The French ambassador, upon that instant, craved audience. Oh, and the hour, I think, has come to give him hearing. Is it 4 o'clock?
It is.
Well, then we go in to know his embassy, which I could with a ready guess declare before the Frenchman spoke a word of it.
I wait upon you, and I long to hear it.
Act 1, Scene 2. The Presence Chamber in the Palace. Enter the King of England, Humphrey, Duke of Gloucester, Bedford, Clarence, Warwick, Westmoreland, and Exeter.
Where is my gracious Lord of Canterbury?
Not here in presence.
Send for him, good uncle.
Are we calling the ambassador, my liege?
Not yet, my cousin. We would be resolved before we hear him of some things of weight that task our thoughts concerning us and France.
God and his angels guard your sacred throne and make you long become it.
Sure, we thank you. My learned lord, we pray you to proceed and justly and religiously unfold why the lost Salic that they have in France or should not bar us in our claim. And God forbid, my dear and faithful lord, that you should fashion, rest, or bow your reading, or nicely charge your understanding soul with opening titles miscreate, whose right suits not in native colors with the truth. For God doth know how many now in health shall drop their blood in approbation of what your reverence shall incite us to. Therefore take heed how you impugn our person, how you awake our sleeping sword of war. We charge you in the name of God, take heed. For never two such kingdoms did contend without much fall of blood, whose guiltless drops are every one a woe, a sore complaint against him whose wrongs give edge unto the swords that make such waste in brief mortality. Under this conjuration speak, my lord, for we will hear, note, and believe in heart that what you speak is in your conscience, washed as pure as sin with baptism.
Then hear me, gracious sovereign, and you peers that owe yourselves, your lives and services to this imperial throne. There is no bar to make against your highness's claim to France, but this, in which they produce from Pharamond. In terram salicum mulieres ne succedant. No woman shall succeed in Salic land. Which Salic land the French unjustly gloze to be the realm of France and Pharamond, the founder of this law and female bar. Yet their own authors faithfully affirm that the Salic land is in Germany, between the floods of Sala and Elba, where Charles the Great, having subdued the Saxons, there left behind and settled certain French, who, holding in disdain the German women for some dishonest manners of their life, established then this law. To wit, no female should be inheritrix in Salic land, which Salic, as I said, twixt Elba and Sala, in this day in Germany called Meissen. Then doth it well appear the Salic law was not devised for the realm of France, nor did the French possess the Salic law until 421 years after defunction of King Pharamond. Idly supposed the founder of this law, who died within the year of our redemption, 426, and Charles the Great subdued the Saxons and did seat the French beyond the river Sala in the year 805. Besides, their writers say, King Pepin, which deposed Childeric, did as heir general, being descended of Blithild, which was daughter to King Clothair, make claim and title to the crown of France. Hugh Capet also, who usurped the crown of Charles the Duke of Lorraine, sole heir male of the true line and stock of Charles the Great, to find his title with some shows of truth, though in pure truth it was corrupt and not, conveyed himself as the heir to the Lady Lingaire, daughter to Charlemagne, who was the son of Louis the Emperor and Louis the son of Charles the Great. Also, King Louis X, who was sole heir to the usurper Capet, could not keep quiet in his conscience, wearing the crown of France, till satisfied that fair Queen Isabel, his grandmother, was lineal of the Lady Ermengar, daughter to Charles, the aforesaid Duke of Lorraine, by which the marriage, the line of Charles the Great, was reunited to the crown of France. So that, as clear as in the summer's sun, King Pepin's title and Hugh Capet's claim, King Louis his satisfaction, all appear to hold in right and title of the female. So do the kings of France unto this day. Howbeit they would hold up this Salic law to bar your highness claiming from the female, and rather choose to hide them in a net than amply to embar their crooked titles usurped from you and your progenitors.
May I with right and conscience make this claim?
The sin upon my head, dread sovereign. For in the book of Numbers it is writ, when the man dies, let the inheritance descend unto the daughter. Gracious Lord, stand for your own. Unwind your bloody flag. Look back into your mighty ancestors. Go, my dread Lord, to your great-grandsire's tomb, for whom you claim. Invoke his warlike spirit, and your great-uncle's, Edward the Black Prince, who on the French ground played a tragedy, making defeat on the full power of France, whilst his most mighty father on a hill stood smiling to behold his lion's whelp forage in blood of French nobility. O noble English, that could entertain with half their forces the full pride of France, and let another half stand laughing by, all out of work and cold for action.
Wake remembrance of these valiant dead, and with your puissant arm renew their feats. You are their heir. You sit upon their throne. The blood and courage that renowned them runs in your veins. And my thrice puissant liege is in the very May morn of his youth, ripe for exploits and mighty enterprises.
Your brother kings and monarchs of the earth do all expect that you should rouse yourself, as did the former lions of your blood.
They know your grace hath cause and means and might. So hath your highness. Never king of England had nobles richer and more loyal subjects whose hearts have left their bodies here in England and the pavilion in the fields of France.
Oh, let their bodies follow, my dear liege, with blood and sword and fire, to win your right, in aid whereof we of the spirituality will raise your highness such a mighty sum as never did the clergy at one time bring into any of your ancestors.
We must not only arm to invade the French, but lay down our proportions to defend against the Scot, who will make road upon us with all advantages.
They of those marches, gracious sovereign, shall be a wall sufficient to defend our inland from the pilfering borderers.
We do not mean the coursing snatchers only, but fear the main intendant of the Scot, who hath been still a giddy neighbor to us. For you shall read that my great-grandfather never went with his forces into France, but that the Scot, on his unfurnished kingdom, came pouring like the tide into a breach, with ample and brim fullness of his force, galling the gleaned land with hot assays, girding with grievous sieges castles and towns, that England, being empty of defence, hath shook and trembled at the ill neighborhood.
She hath been then more feared than harmed, my liege. For hear her but exampled by herself. When all her chivalry hath been in France, and she a mourning widow of her nobles, she hath herself not only well defended, but taken and impounded as a stray the King of Scots, whom she did send to France to fill King Edward's fame with prisoner kings, and make her chronicle as rich with praise as is the ooze and bottom of the sea, with sunken wrack and sumless treasuries.
But there is a saying very old and true. If that you will win France, then with Scotland first began. For once the eagle England being in prey to her unguarded nest, the weasel Scot comes sneaking and so sucks her princely eggs, playing the mouse in absence of the cat, to tame and havoc more than she can eat.
It follows then, the cat must stay at home. Yet that is but a crushed necessity. Since we have locks to safeguard necessaries and pretty traps to catch the petty thieves, while that the armed hand doth fight abroad, the advised head defends itself at home. For government, though high and lower, put into parts, doth keep in one consent, congreeling in a full and natural clothe, like music.
Therefore doth heaven divide the state of man into diverse functions, setting endeavor in continual motion, to which is fixed as an aim or butt, obedience. For so work the honeybees, creatures that by a rule in nature teach the active order to a peopled kingdom. They have a king and officers of sorts, where some like magistrates correct at home, others like merchants venture trade abroad. Others, like soldiers, armed in their stings, make boot upon the summer's velvet buds, which pillage they with merry march bring home to the tent royal of their emperor, who busied in his majesty surveys the singing masons building roofs of gold, the civil citizens kneading up the honey, the poor mechanic porters crowding in their heavy burdens at his narrow gate, the sad-eyed justice with his surly hum, delivering o'er to executioners pale the lazy yawning drone. I this infer, that many things having full reference to one consent may work contrariously, as many arrows lucid several ways come to one mark, as many ways meet in one town, as many fresh streams meet in one salt sea, as many lines close in the dial's center, so may 1,000 actions once afoot end in one purpose and be all well born without defeat. Therefore, to France, my liege, divide your happy England into 4, whereof you take 1/4 into France, and you withal shall make all Gallia shake. If we, with thrice such powers left at home, cannot defend our own doors from the dog, let us be worried, and our nation lose the name of hardiness and policy.
Call in the messengers sent from the Dauphin. Now are we well resolved, and by God's help and yours, the noble sinews of our power, France being ours, will bend it to our awe or break it all to pieces. Or there will sit, ruling in large and ample empery o'er France and all her almost kingly dukedoms, or lay these bones in an unworthy urn, tuneless, with no remembrance over them. Either our history shall with full mouth speak freely of our acts, or else our grave, like Turkish mute, shall have a tongueless mouth, not worshipped and with a waxen epitaph. Now are we well prepared to know the pleasure of our fair cousin Dauphin, for we hear your greeting is from him, not from the king.
May it please your majesty to give us leave freely to render what we have in charge, or shall we sparingly show you far off the Dauphin's meaning and our embassy?
We are no tyrant, but a Christian king, unto whose grace our passion is as subject as is our wretches fettered in our prisons. Therefore, with frank and with uncurmed plainness, tell us the Dauphin's mind.
Thus, then, in few, your highness, lately sending into France, did claim some certain dukedoms in the right of your great predecessor, Edward III. In answer of which claim, the prince, our master, says that you savor too much of your youth and bids you be advised. There's naught in France that can be with a nimble galliard one. You cannot revel in two dukedoms there. He therefore sends you meter for your spirit, this ton of treasure. In lieu of this, desires that you let the kingdoms that you claim hear no more of you. This the Dauphin speaks.
What treasure, uncle?
Tennis balls, my liege.
We are glad the Dauphin is so pleasant with us. His presence and your pains we thank you for. When we have matched our rackets to these balls, we will, in France, by God's grace, play a set shall strike his father's crown into the hazard. Tell him he hath made a match with such a wrangler that all the courts of France will be disturbed with chases. And we understand him well, how he comes o'er us with our wilder days, not measuring what use we made of them. We never valued this poor seat of England, and therefore, living hence, did give ourselves to barbarous license, as 'tis ever common that men are merriest when they are from home. But tell the Dauphin I will keep my state, be like a king, and show my sail of greatness when I do rouse me in my throne of France. For I have laid by my majesty and plotted like a man for working days. But I will rise there with so full a glory that I will dazzle all the eyes of France. Yea, strike the Dauphin blind to look on us. And tell the pleasant prince, this mock of his hath turned his balls to gunstones, and his soul shall stand sore charged for the wasteful vengeance that shall fly with them. For many 1,000 widows shall this his mock out of their dear husbands, mock mothers from their sons, mock castles down. And some are yet ungotten and unborn that shall have cause to curse the Dauphin's scorn. But this lies all within the will of God, to whom I do appeal, and in whose name tell you, the Dauphin, I am coming on, to venge me as I may, and to put forth my rightful hand in a well-hallowed cause. So get you hence in peace, and tell the Dauphin his jest will savor but of shallow wit, when thousands weep more than did laugh at it. Convey them with safe conduct. Fare you well.
This was a merry message.
We hope to make the sender blush at it. Therefore, my lords, omit no happy hour that may give furtherance to our expedition. For we have now no thought in us but France, save those to God, that run before our business. Therefore let our proportions for these wars be soon collected, and all things thought upon that may with reasonable swiftness add more feathers to our wings. For God before will chide this Dauphin at his father's door. Therefore let every man now task his thought, that this fair action may on foot be brought.
Now, all the youth of England are on fire, and silken dalliance in the wardrobe lies. Now thrive the armorers, and honor's thought reigns solely in the breast of every man. They sell the pasture now to buy the horse, following the mirror of all Christian kings with winged heels as English Mercuries. For now sits expectation in the air, and hides a sword from hilts unto the point, with crowns and crownets promised to Harry and his followers. The French, advised by good intelligence of this most dreadful preparation, shake in their fear, and with pale policy seek to divert the English purposes. O England, model to thy inward greatness, like little body with a mighty heart, what mightst thou do that honor would thee do? For all thy children kind and natural. But see, thy fault France hath in thee found out. A nest of hollow bosoms, which he fills with treacherous crowns, and 3 corrupted men, one Richard, Earl of Cambridge, and the second Henry, Lord Scroop of Masham, and the third Sir Thomas Grey, Knight of Northumberland, have, for the guilt of France, oh, guilt indeed, confirmed conspiracy with fearful France, and by their hands this grace of kings must die, if hell and treason hold their promises, ere he take ship for France, and in Southampton. Linger your patience on, and we'll digest the abuse of distance, force a play. The sum is paid, the traitors are agreed, the king is set from London, and the scene is now transported, gentles, to Southampton. There is the playhouse now, there must you sit, and thence to France shall we convey you safe, and bring you back, charming the narrow seas, to give you gentle pass. For if we may, we'll not offend one stomach with our play, but till the king come forth, and not till then, unto Southampton do we shift our scene.
Act 2, Scene 1. A street in London. Enter Corporal Nym and Lieutenant Bardolph.
Well met, Corporal Nym.
Good morrow, Lieutenant Bardolph.
What, are you and Aunt St. Pistol and you friends yet?
For my part, I care not. I say little, but when time shall serve, there shall be smiles. But that shall be as it may. I dare not fight, but I will wink and hold out mine iron. It's a simple one, but what though? It will toast cheese and it will endure cold as another man's sword will. And there's an end.
I will bestow a breakfast to make you friends, and we'll all 3 be sworn brothers to France. Let be so, good Corporal Nym.
Faith, I will live as long as I may, but that's certain of it. When I cannot live any longer, I will do as I may. That is my rest. And that's the rendezvous of it.
It is certain, Corporal, that he is married to Nell Quickly, and certainly she did you wrong, for you were troth's plight to her.
I cannot tell. And things must be as they may. Men may sleep, and they may have their throats about them at that time. And as some say, knives have edges. Must be as it may. Though patience be a tired mare, it shall plod. There must be some conclusions. Well, I cannot tell.
Here comes Ensign Pistol and his wife. Good corporal, be patient here. How now, mine good host, Pistol?
Base tyke, call'st thou me host? Now by this hand I swear I scorn the term, nor shall my Nell keep lodgers.
No, by my troth. Not long, for we cannot lodge and board a dozen or 14 gentlewomen that live honestly by the prick of their needles. But we well bethought we can keep a body house straight. Well, a day, lady. If he be not hewn now, we shall see willful adultery and murder committed.
Good lieutenant, good corporal, offer nothing here.
Fish!
Fish for thee, Iceland dog, thou prick-eared cur of Iceland.
Good Corporal Nim, show thy valor and put up your sword.
You shog off! I would have you, Solace!
Solace, egregious dog. O viper vile, the solace in thy most marvelous face, the solace in thy teeth and in thy throat and in thy hateful lungs, yea, in thy maw, perdie, and which is worse, within the nasty mouth. I do retort, the solace in thy bowels, for I can take, and Pistol's cock is up, and the flashing fire will follow.
I am not Barbison, you cannot conjure me. I have a humour to knock you indifferently well. If you grow foul with me, Pistol, I will scour you with my rapier as I may in fair terms. If you would walk off, I would prick your guts in little terms as I may, and that's the humour of it.
Oh, braggart, vile, and damned furious wit! The grave doth gape, and doting death is near. Therefore exhale!
Hear me, what I say. He that strikes the first stroke, I'll run him till to the hilts, as I am a soldier.
Oh, an oath of mickle might and fury shall abate. Give me thy fist, and thy forefoot to me give, and thy spirits are most tall.
I will cut thy throat one time or other in fair terms. And that's the humour of it.
Oh, cupola gorge, that is the word. I defy thee again, O hound of Crete. Think'st thou my spouse to get? No! To the spittle go, and from the proud-ring tub of infamy fetch forth the lesser kite of Cressid's kind. Dull tear sheet she by name, and her espouse. I will have and I will hold the quondam quickly, for only she, and porker, there's enough too. Go to.
My host, Pistol, you must come to my master and your hostess. He is very sick and would to bed. Good Bardolph, put thy face between his sheets and do the office of a warming pan. Faith, he is very ill.
Away, you rogue.
By my troth, he'll yield the crow a pudding one of these days. The king has killed his heart. Good husband, come home presently.
Come, shall I make you two friends? We must to France together. Why the devil should we keep knives to cut one another's throats?
Let floods o'erswell and fiends for food howl on.
You'll pay me the 8 shillings I won of you at betting.
Base is the slave that pays.
That now I will have, and that's the humour of it.
As manhood shall compound. Push home!
By the sword, he that makes the first thrust, I'll kill him. By the sword I will.
Oh, sword is an oath, and oaths must have their course.
Corporal Nim, and thou wilt be friends, be friends. Ill thou wilt not, why then be enemies with me too. Prithee, put up.
A noble shalt thou have, and present pay, and liquor likewise will I give to thee, and friendship shall combine, and brotherhood. I'll live by Nim, and Nim shall live by me. Is not this just? For I shall sutler be unto the camp, and profits will accrue. Give me thy hand.
I shall have my noble.
In cash most justly paid.
Well then, that's the humour of it.
As ever you come of a woman, come in quickly to Sir John. Ah, poor heart, he is shaked of a burning quotidian tridian that is the most lamentable to behold. Sweet men, come to him.
The king hath run bad humours on the night, and that's the even of it.
Nym, thou hast spoke the right. His heart is fracted and corroborate.
The king is a good king, but it must be as it may. He passes some humours and careers.
Let us condole the night, for lambkins, we will live.
Act 2, Scene 2, Southampton, a council chamber. Enter Exeter, Bedford, and Westmoreland.
For God, his grace is bold to trust these traitors.
They shall be apprehended by and by.
Smooth and even they do bear themselves, as if allegiance in their bosoms sat crowned with faith and constant loyalty.
The king hath note of all that they intend, and by interception, which they dream not of.
Nay, but the man that was his bedfellow, whom he hath dulled and cloyed with gracious favors, that he should for a foreign purse so sell his sovereign's life to death and treachery.
Now sits the wind fair, and we will aboard. My lord of Cambridge, my kind lord of Marsham, and you, my gentle knight, give me your thoughts. Think you not that the powers we bear with us will cut their passage through the force of France, doing the execution and the act for which we have in head assembled them?
No doubt, my liege, if each man do his best.
I doubt not that, since we are well persuaded we carry not a heart with us from hence that grows not in a fair consent with ours, nor leave not one behind that doth not wish success and conquest to attend on us.
Never was monarch better feared and loved than your majesty is. There's not, I think, a subject that sits in heart grief and uneasiness under the sweet shade of your government.
True, those that were your father's enemies have steeped their galls in honey and do serve you with heart's creative duty and of zeal.
We therefore have great cause of thankfulness, and shall forget the office of our hand sooner than acquittance of desert and merit according to the weight and worthiness.
No service shall with steeled sinews toil, and labor shall refresh itself with hope to do your grace incessant services.
We judge no less. Uncle of Exeter, enlarge the man committed yesterday that railed against our person. We consider it was excess of wine that set him on, and on his more advice we pardoned him.
That's mercy, but too much security. Let him be punished, sovereign, lest example breed by his sufferance more of such a kind.
Let us yet be merciful.
So may your highness, and yet punish him too.
Sir, you show great mercy if you give him life after the taste of much correction.
Alas, your too much love and care of me are heavy orisons against this poor wretch. If little faults proceeding on distemper shall not be winked at, how shall we stretch our eye when capital crimes, chewed, swallowed, and digested, appear before us? We'll yet enlarge that man, though Cambridge, Scroop, and Grey, in their dear care and tender preservation of our person, would have him punished. And now to our French causes. Who are the late commissioners?
I won, my lord. Your highness bade me ask for it today.
So did you me, my liege?
And I, my royal sovereign.
Then, Richard, Earl of Cambridge, there is yours. They're yours, Lord Scroop of Marsham. And Sir Knight Grey, Northumberland, the same is yours. Read them, and I know your worthiness. My Lord of Westmoreland and Uncle Exeter, we will aboard tonight. Why, how now, gentlemen? What see you in those papers that you lose so much complexion? Look you how they change, their cheeks are paper. Why, what read you there that have so cowarded and chased your blood out of appearance?
I do confess my fault, and do submit me to your highness's mercy.
To which we all appeal.
The mercy that was quick in us but late, by your own counsel, is suppressed and killed. You must not dare, for shame, to talk of mercy. For your own reasons turn into your bosoms as dogs upon their masters, worrying you. See you, my princes and my noble peers, these English monsters. My lord of Cambridge here, you know how apt our love was to accord to furnish him with all appurtenance belonging to his honor. And this man hath, for a few light crowns, lightly conspired and sworn unto the practices of France to kill us here in Hampton. To the which, this knight, no less for bounty bound to us than Cambridge is, hath likewise sworn. But oh, what shall I say to thee, Lord Scroop, thou cruel, ingrateful, savage, and inhuman creature? Thou that didst bear the key of all my counsels, that knewst the very bottom of my soul, that almost mightst have coined me into gold, wouldst thou have practiced on me for thy use. May it be possible that foreign hire could out of thee extract one spark of evil that might annoy my finger? 'Tis so strange that though the truth of it stands off as gross as black and white, my eye will scarcely see it. Treason and murder ever kept together, as two yoke devils sworn to either's purpose, working so grossly in a natural cause that admiration did not whoop at them. But thou, 'gainst all proportion, didst bring in wonder to wait on treason and on murder. And whatsoever cunning fiend it was that wrought upon thee so preposterously, hath got the voice in hell of excellence. All other devils that suggest by treasons do botch and bungle up damnation, with patches, colors, and with forms being fetched from glistering semblances of piety. But he that tempered thee, bade thee stand up, gave thee no instance why thou shouldst do treason, unless to dub thee with the name of traitor. If that same demon that hath gulled thee thus should with his lion gait walk the whole world, he might return to vasty Tartar back and tell the legions, I can never win a soul so easy as that Englishman's. Oh, how hast thou with jealousy infected the sweetness of Affians? Show men dutiful? Why, so didst thou. Seem they grave and learned? Why, so didst thou. Come they of noble family? Why, so didst thou. Seem they religious? Why, so didst thou. Or are they spare in diet, free from gross passion or of mirth or anger, constant in spirit, not swerving with the blood, garnished and decked in modest compliment, not working with the eye without the ear, and but in purged judgment trusting neither? Such and so finely bolted didst thou seem. And thus thy fall hath left a kind of blot to mark the full-fraught man and best endued with some suspicion. I will weep for thee, for this revolt of thine, methinks, is like another fall of man. Their faults are open. Arrest them to the answer of the law, and God acquit them of their practices.
I arrest thee of high treason by the name of Richard, Earl of Cambridge. I arrest thee of high treason by the name of Henry, Lord Scroop of Masham. I arrest thee of high treason by the name of Thomas Grey, Knight of Northumberland.
Our purposes God justly hath discovered, and I repent my fault more than my death, which I beseech your highness to forgive, although my body pay the price for it.
For me, the gold of France did not seduce, although I did admit it as a motive, the sooner to effect what I intended. But God be thanked for my prevention, which I in sufferance will heartily rejoice, beseeching God and you to pardon me.
Never did faithful subject more rejoice at the discovery of most dangerous treason than I do at this hour, joy o'er myself prevented from a damned enterprise. My fault, but not my body, pardon, sovereign.
God quit you in his mercy. Hear your sentence. You have conspired against our royal person, joined with an enemy proclaimed, and from his coffers received the golden earnest of our death, wherein you would have sold your king to slaughter, his princes and his peers to servitude, his subjects to oppression and contempt, and his whole kingdom into desolation. Touching our person, seek we no revenge, but we our kingdom's safety must so tender, whose ruin you have sought, that to her laws we do deliver you. Get you therefore hence, poor miserable wretches, to your death, the taste whereof God of his mercy give you patience to endure, and true repentance of all your dear offenses. Bear them hence. Now, lords, for France, the enterprise whereof shall be to you as us, like glorious, we doubt not of a fair and lucky war, since God so graciously hath brought to light this dangerous treason lurking in our way to hinder our beginnings. We doubt not now, but every rub is smoothed on our way. Then forth, dear countrymen, let us deliver our puissance into the hand of God, putting it straight in expedition. Cheerly to see the signs of war advance. No king of England, if not king of France.
Act 2, Scene 3. London, before the Boar's Head Tavern. Enter Pistol, Nym, Bardolph, Boy, and Hostess.
Prithee, honey, sweet husband, let me bring thee to Staines.
No, for my manly heart doth earn. Bardolph, be blithe. Nym, rouse thy vaunting veins. Boy, bristle up courage. For Falstaff, he is dead, and we must earn therefore.
Would I were with him, wheresoe'er he is, either in heaven or in hell.
Nay, sure he's not in hell. He's in Arthur's bosom. If ever a man went to Arthur's bosom, he made a finer end and went away, and it had been any Christum child. He parted, even just between 12 and 1, even at the turning of the tide. For after I saw him fumble with the sheets and play with the flowers and smile upon his finger's end, I knew there was but one way. For his nose was as sharp as a pen, and he talked of green fields. How now, Sir John, quoth I, what, man? Be of good cheer. So he cried out, God, 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 3 or 4 times. Now I, to comfort him, bid him should not think of God. I hoped there was no need to trouble himself with any such thoughts yet. So he bade me lay more clothes on his feet. And I put my hand into the bed and felt them, and they were as cold as any stone. And then I felt to his knees, and so upward and upward, and all was as cold as any stone.
They say he cried out a sack.
Aye, that he did.
And of women.
Nay, he did not.
Yes, that he did, and said they were devils incarnate.
He could never abide carnation. 'Twas a color he never liked.
He said once the devil would have him about women.
He did in some sort, indeed, handle women, but then he was rheumatic and talked to the whore of Babylon.
Do you not remember he saw a flea stick upon Bardolph's nose, and he said it was a black soul burning in hell?
Well, the fuel is gone that maintained that fire. That's all the riches I got in his service.
Shall we shog? The king will be gone from Southampton.
Let's away. Oh, my love, give me thy lips. Look to my chattels and my movables. Let senses rule. The word is pitch and pay. Trust none, for oaths are straws, men's faith are wafer cakes, and holdfast is the only dog, my duck. Therefore, Cavito be thy counselor. Go, clear thy crystals. Yoke fellow in arms. Let us to France like horse leeches, my boys, to suck the very blood.
Wait, that's but unwholesome food, they say.
Touch a soft mouth and march.
Farewell, hostess.
I cannot kiss. That's the humour of it. But adieu.
Let us walk here. Keep close, I command.
Farewell. Adieu.
Act 2, Scene 4. France, the King's Palace. Enter the French King, the Dauphin, the Dukes of Berry, Bretigny, the Constable, and others. Thus comes the English with full power upon us, and more than carefully it us concerns to answer royally in our defences. Therefore, Dukes of Berry and Bretigny, Brabant, Orleans, shall make forth, and you, Prince Dauphin, with all swift dispatch, to line our new repair, our towns of war, with men of courage and with means defended. For England his approaches makes as fierce as waters to the sucking of a gulf. Fits us then to be as provident as fear may teach us out of late examples left by the fatal and neglected English upon our fields.
My most redoubted father, it is most meet we arm us against the foe, for peace itself should not so dull a kingdom, though war nor no known quarrel were in question, but that defenses, musters, preparation should be maintained, assembled, and collected as were war in expectation. Therefore, I say, 'tis meet we all go forth to view the sick and feeble parts of France, and let us do it with no show of fear. No, with no more than if we heard that England were busied with a Whitsun Morris dance. For my good liege, she is so idly kinged, her sceptre so fantastically borne by a vain, giddy, shallow, humorous youth, that fear attends her not.
Oh, peace, Prince Dauphin. You are too much mistaken in this king. Question your grace the late ambassadors with what great state he held their embassy, how well supplied with noble counselors, how modest in exception, and withal how terrible in constant resolution, and you shall find his vanities forspent were but the outside of the Roman Brutus, covering discretion with a coat of folly, as gardeners do with ordure hide those roots that shall first spring and be most delicate.
Well, 'tis not so, my lord high constable, but though we think it is no matter. In cases of defense, 'tis best to weigh the enemy more mighty than he seems, so the proportions of defense are filled, which of a weak and niggardly projection doth, like a miser, spoil his coat with scanting a little cloth.
Think we, King Ares, strong, and princes, look you strongly armed to meet him. The kindred of him hath been fleshed upon us, and he is bred out of that bloody strain that haunted us in our familiar paths. Witness our too much memorable shame when Crécy battle fatally was struck, and all our princes captived by the hand of that black name, Edward Black, Prince of Wales. Was that his mountain sire on a mountain standing up in the air, crowned with the golden sun, saw his heroical seed, and smiled to see him mangle the work of nature and deface the patterns that by God and by French fathers had 20 years been made. This is a stem of that victorious stock, and let us fear the native mightiness and fate of him.
Ambassadors from Harry, King of England, do crave admittance to your majesty.
We'll give them present audience. Go and bring them. You see, this chase is hotly followed, friends.
Turn head and stop pursuit, for cowardly dogs most spend their mouths when what they seem to threaten runs far before them. Good my sovereign, take up the English short, and let them know of what a monarchy you are the head. Self-love, my liege, is not so vile a sin as self-neglecting.
From our brother England,
from him, and thus he greets your majesty. He wills you in the name of God Almighty, that you divest yourself and lay apart the borrowed glories that by gift of heaven, by law of nature and of nations longs to him and his heirs, namely the crown, and all wide-stretched honors that pertain by custom and the ordinance of times unto the crown of France. That you may know, 'tis no sinister nor no awkward claim picked from the wormholes of long vanished days, nor from the dust of old oblivion raked. He sends you this most memorable line. In every branch truly demonstrative, willing you overlook his pedigree, and when you find him evenly derived from his most fame of famous ancestors, Edward III, he bids you then resign your crown and kingdom, indirectly held from him, the native and true challenger.
Or else? What follows?
Bloody constraint. For if you hide the crown, even in your hearts, there will he rake it. Therefore, in fierce tempest, he is coming, in thunder and in earthquake like a Jove, that if requiring fail, he will compel and bids you in the bowels of the Lord deliver up the crown and to take money on the poor souls for whom this hungry war opened his vasty jaws, and on your head, turning the widow's tears, the orphan's cries, the dead men's blood, and the privied maiden's groans, for husbands, fathers, and betrothed lovers that shall be swallowed in this controversy. This is his claim, his threatening, and my message. Unless the Dauphin be in presence here, to whom expressly I bring greeting to.
For us, we will consider of this further. Tomorrow shall you bear our full intent back to our brother England.
For the Dauphin, I stand here for him. What to him from England?
Scorn, defiance, slight regard, contempt, and anything that may not misbecome the mighty sender, doth he prize you at. Thus says my king. And if your father's highness do not, in grant of all demands at large, sweeten the bitter mock you sent his majesty, he'll call you to so hot an answer of it, that caves and woomy voltages of France shall chide your trespass and return your mock in second accents of his ordinance.
Say, if my father render fair return, it is against my will, for I desire nothing but odds with England. So to that end, as matching to his youth and vanity, I did present him with the Paris balls.
He'll make your Paris Louvre shake for it. We're at the mistress court of mighty Europe, and be assured you'll find a difference, as we his subjects have wonder found between the promise of his greener days and these he masters now. Now he weighs time even to the utmost grain, that you shall read in your own losses if he stay in France.
Tomorrow shall you know our mind at full.
Dispatch us with all speed, lest our king come here himself to question our delay, for he is footed in this land already.
You shall be soon dispatched with fair conditions. A night is but small breath and little pause to answer matters of this consequence.
Thus, with imagined wing, our swift scene flies in motion of no less celerity than that of thought. Suppose that you have seen the well-appointed king at Dover pier embark his royalty and his brave fleet, with silken streamers the young Phoebus fanning. Play with your fancies, and in them behold, upon the hempen tackle, shipboys climbing. Hear the shrill whistle which doth give order to sounds confused. Behold the threadened sails, borne with the invisible and creeping wind, draw the huge bottoms through the furrowed sea, breasting the lofty surge. Oh, do but think, you stand upon the rivage and behold a city on the inconstant billows dancing. For so appears this fleet majestical, holding due course to Harfleur. Follow, follow. Grapple your minds to sternage of this navy, and leave your England as dead midnight still, guarded with grandsires, babies, and old women, either past or not arrived to pith and puissance. For who is he whose chin is but enriched with one appearing hair that will not follow these culled and choice-drawn cavaliers to France? Work your thoughts, and therein see a siege. Behold the ordnance on their carriages, with fatal mouths gaping on girded Harfleur. Suppose the ambassador from the French comes back, tells Harry that the king doth offer him Catherine, his daughter, and with her to dowry some petty and unprofitable dukedoms. The offer likes not, and the nimble gunner with linstock now the devilish cannon touches. And down goes all before them. Still be kind and eke out our performance with your mind.
Act 3, Scene 1. France, before Harfleur. Enter the King of England, Exeter, Bedford, and Gloucester.
Once more unto the breach, dear friends, once more, or close the wall up with our English dead. In peace, there's nothing so becomes a man as modest stillness and humility. But when the blast of war blows in our ears, then imitate the action of the tiger. Stiffen the sinews, summon up the blood, disguise fair nature with hard favored rage. Then lend the eye a terrible aspect. Let it pry through the portage of the head like the brass cannon. Let the brow o'erwhelm it as fearfully as doth a galled rock o'erhang and jutty his confounded base, swilled with the wild and wasteful ocean. Now set the teeth, and stretch the nostril wide, hold hard the breath, and bend up every spirit to his full height. On, you noblest English, whose blood is fed from fathers of war-proof, fathers that, like so many Alexanders, have in these parts from morn till even fought, and sheathed their swords for lack of argument. Dishonor not your mothers. Now attest that those whom you call fathers did beget you. Be copy now to men of grosser blood, and teach them how to war. And you, good yeomen, whose limbs were made in England, show us here the mettle of your pasture. Let us swear that you are worth your breeding, which I doubt not, for there is none of you so mean and base that hath not noble luster in your eyes. I see you stand like greyhounds in the slips, straining upon the start. The game's afoot. Follow your spirit, and upon this charge cry, God for Harry, England, and St. George!
Act 3, Scene 2. Harfleur, the outskirts of the battle. Enter Nym, Bardolph, Pistol, and Boy.
On! To the breach, to the breach!
Pray thee, Corporal, stay. The knocks are too hot, and for mine own part, I have not a case of lives. The humour is too hot, and that's the very plain song of it.
The plain song is most just, for humours do abound. Knocks go and come, God's vassals drop and die, and sword and shield and bloody field doth win immortal fame.
Would I were in an alehouse in London, I would give all my fame for a pot of ale and safety.
Oh, and I, if wishes would prevail with me, my purpose should not fail with me, but thither would I hie.
As duly, but not as truly, as bird doth sing on bow.
Up to the breach, you dogs! Avaunt, you cullions!
Oh, be more merciful, great Duke, to men of mould. Abate thy rage, abate thy manly rage, abate thy rage, great Duke. Good barcock, abate thy rage. Use lenity, sweet chuck.
These be good humours. Your honour wins bad humours.
As young as I am, I have served these three swashers. I am boy to all three, but all they three, though they would serve me, could not be man to me. For indeed, three such antics do not amount to a man. For Bardolph, he is a white-livered and red face, by the means whereof he faces it out, but fights not. For Pistol, he hath a killing tongue and a quiet sword, by the means whereof he breaks words and keeps whole weapons. For Nymph, he had heard that men of few words are the best men, and therefore he scorns to say his prayers, lest he should be thought a coward. But his few bad words are matched with a few good deeds, for he never broke any man's head but his own, and that was against a post when he was drunk. They will steal anything and call it purchase. Bardolph stole a lute case, bore it 12 leagues, and sold it for 3 halfpence. Nymph and Bardolph are sworn brothers in flinching, and in Calais they stole a fire shovel. I knew by that piece of service the men would carry their coals. They would have me as familiar with men's pockets as their gloves or their handkerchiefs, which makes much against my manhood. If I should take from another's pocket to put into mine, for it is plain pocketing up wrongs. I must leave them and seek some better service. Their villainy goes against my weak stomach, and therefore I must cast it up. Captain Fluin, you must come presently to the mines. The Duke of Gloucester would speak with you.
To the mines? Tell you the Duke, it is not so good to come to the mines, for look you, the mines is not according to the disciplines of the war. The concavities of it is not sufficient, for look you, the adversary, you may discuss it unto the Duke, look you, is digged himself 4 yard under the countermines. By Jesu, I think he will plough us up all if there is not better directions.
The Duke of Gloucester, to whom the order of the siege is given, is altogether directed by an Irishman, a very valiant gentleman in faith.
It is Captain McMorris, is it not?
I think it's not. I think it be.
By Jesu, he is an ass, as in the world. I will verify as much in his beard. He has no more directions in the true disciplines of the wars, look you, of the Roman disciplines, than he's a puppy dog.
Here he comes, and the Scots captain, Captain Jamie, with him.
Captain Jamie is a marvellous valorous gentleman, that is certain, and of great expedition and knowledge in the ancient wars. Upon my particular knowledge of his directions, by Jesu, he will maintain his argument as well as any military man in the world in the disciplines of the pristine wars of the Romans.
I say good day, Captain Fluel.
Got into your worship, good Captain James.
How now, Captain McMorrison? Have you quit the mines? Have the prisoners given over?
By Christ law, 'tis ill done. The work is give over. The trumpets sound the retreat. By my hand I swear, and my father's soul, the work is ill done. It is give over. I would have blowed up the town, so Christ save me la, in an hour. Oh, 'tis ill done. 'Tis ill done by my hand. 'Tis ill done.
Captain McMorris, I beseech you now, will you vouchsafe me, look you, a few disputations with you as partly touching or concerning the disciplines of the war, the Roman wars? In the way of argument, look you, and friendly communication, partly to satisfy my opinion and partly for the satisfaction, look you, of my mind as touching the direction of the military discipline. That is the point.
It shall be very good, good faith, good captains both. I shall quit you with good leave, as I may pick occasion, that shall I marry.
It is no time to discourse, so Christ save me. The day is hot, and the weather, and the wars, and the king and the dukes. It is no time to discourse. The town is besieged, and the trumpet calleth to the breach, and we talk. And be Christ, do nothing. 'Tis shame for us all. So God save me, 'tis shame to stand still. It is shame by my hand. And there is throats to be cut, and works to be done, and there is nothing done. So Christ save me law.
By the mess, ere these eyes of mine take themselves to slumber, I'll do good service, I'll lie a leg in the ground for it, aye, or go to death. I'll pay it as valorously as I may. That shall I surely do. What is the breath and the long? Mary, I would full fain heard some question between you tway.
Captain McMorris, I think, look you, under your correction, there is not many of your nation.
Of my nation? What is my nation? Is a villain and a bastard and a knave and a rascal. What is my nation? Who talks of my nation?
Look you, if you take the matter otherwise than is meant, Captain McMorris, peradventure I shall think you do not use me with the affability as in discretion you ought to use me. Look you, being as good a man as yourself, both in the disciplines of the war and in the derivation of my birth and in other particularities.
I do not know you so good a man as myself. So Christ save me, I will cut off your head.
Gentlemen, both, you will mistake each other.
Ah, that's a foul fault.
Town sounds a parley.
Captain McMorris, when there is more better opportunity to be required, look you, I will be so bold as to tell you I know the disciplines of war, and there's an end.
Act 3, Scene 3. Before the gates of Harfleur. Enter the King of England and Duke of Exeter and their officers.
How yet resolves the governor of the town? This is the latest parley we will admit. Therefore, to our best mercy, give yourselves, or, like to men proud of destruction, defy us to our worst. For, as I am a soldier, a name that in my thoughts becomes me best, if I begin the battery once again, I will not leave the half-achieved Harfleur till in her ashes she lie buried. The gates of mercy shall be all shut up, and the fleshed soldier, rough and hard of heart, in liberty of bloody hand, shall range with conscience wide as hell, mowing like grass your fresh fair virgins and your flowering infants. What is it then to me, if impious war, arrayed in flames like to the prince of fiends, do with his smirched complexion all fell feats and linked to waste and desolation? What is to me, when you yourselves are cause, if your pure maidens fall into the hand of hot and forcing violation? What rein can hold licentious wickedness when down the hill he holds his fierce career? We may as bootless spend our vain command upon the enraged soldiers and their spoil as send precepts to the Leviathan to come ashore. Therefore, you men of Harfleur, take pity of your town and of your people, whiles yet my soldiers are in my command, whiles yet the cool and temperate wind of grace o'erblows the filthy and contagious clouds of heady murder, spoil, and villainy. If not, why, in a moment look to see the blind and bloody soldier with foul hand desire the locks of your shrill shrieking daughters, your fathers taken by the silver beards and their most reverend heads dashed to the walls, your naked infants spitted upon pikes, whilst their mad mothers with their howls confused do break the clouds, as did the wives of Jewry at Herod's bloody hunting slaughterment. What say you? Will you yield and this avoid, or guilty in defense be thus destroyed?
Our expectation hath this day an end. The Dauphin, whom of course we entreated, returns us that his powers are not yet ready to raise so great a siege. Therefore, great King, we yield our town and lives to thy soft mercy. Enter our gates, dispose of us and ours, for we no longer are defensible.
Open your gates. Come, Uncle Exeter, go you and enter Harfleur. There remain and fortify it strongly against the French. Use mercy to them all for us, dear uncle. The winter coming on and sickness growing upon our soldiers, we will retire to Calais. Tonight in Harfleur will we be your guest. Tomorrow for the march are we addressed.
Act 3, Scene 4. France, a chamber in the palace. Enter Princess Catherine and Alice.
Alice, tu as été en Angleterre et tu parles bien le langage.
Un peu, madame.
Je te prie, m'enseigner. Il faut que j'apprenne à parler. Comment appelez-vous la main en anglais?
La main, elle est appelée the hand.
The hand. Et les doigts?
Les doigts? Ma foi, j'oublie les doigts. Mais je me souviendrai. Les doigts, je pense qu'ils sont appelés the fingers. Oui, des fingers.
La main, the hand, les doigts, le fingers. Je pense que je suis bonne écolier. J'ai gagné 2 mots d'anglais vitement. Comment appelez-vous les ongles?
Les ongles, nous les appelons the nails.
The nails. Écoutez, dites-moi si je parle bien. The hand, the fingers et the nails.
C'est bien dit, madame. Il est fort bon anglais.
Dites-moi l'anglais pour le bras.
De arme, madame.
Et le coude?
D'elbow.
D'elbow. Je refais la répétition de tous les mots que vous m'avez appris dès à présent.
Il est trop difficile, madame, comme je pense.
Excusez-moi, Alice, écoutez. The hand, the finger, the nails, the arm, the elbow.
D'elbow, madame.
Oh, Seigneur Dieu, je m'en oublie. The elbow. Comment appelez-vous le col?
De nick, madame.
Nick. Et le menton?
De chin.
De chin. Le col de Nick et le menton de chin.
Oui. Sauf votre honneur, en vérité, vous prononcez les mots aussi droits que les natifs d'Angleterre.
Je ne doute point d'apprendre par la grâce de Dieu et en peu de temps.
N'avez-vous pas déjà oublié ce que je vous ai enseigné?
Non, je réciterai à vous promptement. The hand, the finger, the nails.
The nails, madame.
The nails, the arm, the elbow.
Sauf votre honneur, d'elbow.
Ainsi dis-je d'elbow. The neck et the chin. Comment appelez-vous le pied et la robe?
Le foot, madame, et le con.
Le foot et le compte? Oh Seigneur Dieu! Ils sont les mots de son mauvais, corruptible, gros et impudique et non pour les dents d'honneur d'user. Je voudrais prononcer ces mots devant les seigneurs de France pour tout le monde. Oh, le foot et le coude. Néanmoins, je réciterai une autre fois ma leçon ensemble. The hand, the finger, the nails, the arm, the elbow, the neck, the chin, the foot et le cou.
Excellent, madame.
C'est assez pour une fois. Allons-nous au dîner.
Act 3, Scene 5. A hall in the French king's palace. Enter the King of France, the Dauphin, the Duke of Brittany, and the Constable de France. 'Tis certain he hath passed the river Somme.
And if he be not fought withal, my lord, let us not live in France. Let us quit all and give our vineyard to a barbarous people.
Du vivant, shall a few sprays of us, the emptying of our father's luxury, our scions put in wild and savage stock, spurt up so suddenly into the clouds and overlook their grafters?
Normans, but bastard Normans, Norman bastards, mort de ma vie. If they march along, unfought withal, but I will sell my dukedom to buy a slubbery and a dirty farm in that nook shut in Isle of Albion.
Dieu de bataille, where have they this metal? Is not their climate foggy, raw, and dull, on whom, as in despite, the sun looks pale, killing their fruit with frowns? Can sodden water, a drench for serine jades their barley broth, decoct their cold blood to such valiant heat? And shall our quick blood, spirited with wine, seem frosty? Oh, for honor of our land, let us not hang like roping icicles upon our houses' thatch, while among frosty people sweat drops of gallant youth in our rich fields. Poor we may call them in our native laws.
By faith and honor, our madams mock at us, and plainly say our metal is bred out, and they will give their bodies to the lust of English youth, to new store France with bastard warriors.
They beat us to the English dancing schools, and teach la voltas high and swift carantos, saying our grace is only in our heels, and that we are most lofty runaways.
Where is Montjoie, the herald? Speed him hence. Let him greet England with our sharp defiance. Up, princes, and with spirit of honor edged more sharper than your swords, high to the field. Charles de la Brette, High Constable de France, you Dukes of Orléans, Bourbon, Berry, Alençon, Brabant, Bar, Burgundy, Jacques Chatillon, Rambert, Vaudemont, Beaumont, Grandpré, Roussy, and Fortinbridge, Foix, Lestrade, Boucicaut, and Charleroi. High Dukes, great princes, barons, lords, and knights, for your great seats now quit you of your great shames. Bar, hairy England, that sweeps through our land with pennons painted in the blood of Harfleur. Rush on his host, as doth the melted snow upon the valleys, whose low vassal seat the Alps doth spit and void his room upon. Go down upon him, you have power enough, and in a captive chariot into Rouen, bring him, our prisoner.
This becomes the great. Sorry am I his numbers are so few, his soldiers sick and famished in their march. For I am sure when he shall see our army, he'll drop his heart into the sink of fear and for achievement offer us his ransom.
And therefore, Lord Constable, haste on Montjoie, and let him say to England that we send to know what willing ransom he will give. Prince Dauphin, you shall stay with us in Rouen.
Not so, I do beseech your majesty.
Be patient, for you shall remain with us. Forth, good Lord Constable and princes all, and quickly bring us word of England's fall. Act 3, Scene 6. The English camp in Picardy. Enter the English and Welsh captains, Gower and Llewellyn.
Now, Captain Fluellen, come you from the bridge?
I assure you there is very excellent services committed at the bridge.
Is the Duke of Exeter safe?
The Duke of Exeter is as magnanimous as Agamemnon, and a man that I love and honor with my soul and my heart and my duty and my life and my living and my uttermost power. He is not, God be praised and blessed, any hurt in the world, but keep the bridge most valiantly with excellent discipline. There is an ancient lieutenant there at the bridge. I think in my very conscience he is as valiant a man as Mark Antony, and he is a man of no estimation in the world, but I did see him do as gallant service.
What do you call him?
He is called Ancient Pistol.
Know him not.
Here is the man.
Captain, I thee beseech to do me favours. The Duke of Exeter doth love thee well.
Aye, I praise God. I have merited some love at his hands.
Bardolph, a soldier firm and sound of heart and buxom valour, hath by cruel fate and giddy fortune's furious fickle wheel, that goddess blind that stands upon the rolling restless stone.
By your patience, Ancient Pistol, Fortune is painted blind, with a muffler afore her eyes to signify to you that Fortune is blind. And she is painted also with a wheel to signify to you, which is the moral of it, that she is turning and inconstant and mutability and variation. And her foot, look you, is fixed upon a spherical stone, which rolls and rolls and rolls. In good truth, the poet makes a most excellent description of it. Fortune is an excellent moral.
Fortune is Bardolph's foe, and frowns on him, for he hath stolen a pax, and hanged must he be. A damned death! Let gallows gape for dog, let man go free, and let not hemp his windpipe suffocate. But Exeter hath given the doom of death for packs of little price. Therefore go, speak. The Duke will hear thy voice, and let not Bardolph's vital thread be cut with the edge of penny cord and vile reproach. Speak, Captain, for his life, and I will thee requite.
Ancient Pistol, I do partly understand your meaning.
Why then rejoice therefore.
Certainly, Ancient, it is not a thing to rejoice at, for if, look you, he were my brother, I would desire the Duke to use his good pleasure and put him to execution, for discipline ought to be used.
Die and be damned, and figo for thy friendship.
It is well.
Oh, the fig of Spain.
Very good.
Why, this is an arrant counterfeit rascal. I remember him now, bought a cut purse.
I'll assure you he uttered as brave words at the bridge as you shall see in a summer's day. But it is very well. What he spoke to me, that is well, I warrant you, when time is served.
Why, 'tis a gull, a fool, a rogue that now and then goes to the wars to grace himself at his return into London under the form of a soldier, and such fellows are perfect in the great commanders' names, and they will learn you by rote where services were done at such and such a sconce, at such a breach, at such a convoy, who came off bravely, who was shot, who was disgraced, what terms the enemy stood on. And this they con perfectly in the phrase of war, which they trick up with new-tuned oaths, and what a beard of a general's cut and a horrid suit of the camp will do among foaming battles and ale-washing wits is wonderful to be thought on, but you must learn to know such slanders of the age, or else you may be marvelously mistook.
I tell you what, Captain Gower, I do perceive he is not the man that he would gladly make show to the world he is. If I find a hole in his coat, I will tell him my mind. Hark you, the king is coming, and I must speak with him from the bridge. God bless your majesty.
How now, Llewellyn? Camest thou from the bridge?
Aye, so please your majesty. The Duke of Exeter has very gallantly maintained the bridge. The French is gone off, look you, and there is gallant and most brave passages. Marry, the adversary was have possession of the bridge, but he is enforced to retire, and the Duke of Exeter is master of the bridge. I can tell your majesty, the Duke is a brave man.
What men have you lost, Llewellyn?
The perdition of the adversary hath been very great, reasonable great. Marry, for my part, I think the Duke hath lost never a man but one that is like to be executed for robbing a church. One Bardolph, if your majesty knows the man. His face is all bobaclace and whelks and knobs and flames of fire. His lips blows at his nose, and it is like a coal of fire, sometimes blue, sometimes red, but his nose is executed, and his fire's out.
We would have all such offenders so cut off, and we give express charge that in our marches through the country there be nothing compelled from the villages, nothing taken but paid for, none of the French upbraided or abused in disdainful language. When lenity and cruelty play for a kingdom, the gentler gamester is the soonest winner.
You know me by my habit.
Well then, I know thee. What shall I know of thee?
My master's mind.
Unfold it.
Thus says my king, say thou to Harry of England, though we seemed dead, we did but sleep. Advantage is a better soldier than rashness. Tell him we could have rebuked him at Harfleur, but that we thought no good to bruise an injury till it were full right. Now we speak upon our cue, and our voice is imperial. England shall repent his folly, see his weakness, and admire our sufferance. Bid him therefore consider of his ransom, which must proportion the losses we have borne, the subjects we have lost, the disgrace we have digested, which in wait to re-answer his pettiness would bow under. For our losses his exchequer is too poor, For the effusion of our blood, the muster of his kingdom too faint a number, and for our disgrace, his own person kneeling at our feet but a weak and worthless satisfaction. To this, add defiance, and tell him, for conclusion, he hath betrayed his followers, whose condemnation is pronounced, so far my king and master, so far my office.
What is thy name? I know thy quality.
Montjoie?
Thou dost thy office fairly. Turn thee back, and tell thy king I do not seek him now, but could be willing to march on to Calais, without impeachment. For, to say the sooth, though 'tis no wisdom to confess so much unto an enemy of craft and vantage, my people are with sickness much enfeebled, my numbers lessened, and those few I have almost no better than so many French, who, when they were in health, I tell thee, Harold, I thought upon one pair of English legs did march 3 Frenchmen. Yet forgive me, God, that I do brag thus. This your heir of France hath blown that vice in me. I must repent. Go, therefore, tell thy master, here I am. My ransom is this frail and worthless trunk, my army but a weak and sickly guard. Yet, before God, tell him we will come on through France himself, and such another neighbor stand in our way. There's for thy labor, Montjoie. Go bid thy master well advise himself. If we may pass, we will. If we be hindered, we shall your tawny ground with your red blood discolor. And so, Montjoie, fare you well. The sum of all our answer is but this. We would not seek a battle as we are, nor as we are, we say we will not shun it. So tell your master.
I shall deliver so, thanks to your highness.
I hope they will not come upon us now.
We are in God's hands, brother, not in theirs. March to the bridge. It now draws toward night. Beyond the river we'll encamp ourselves, and on tomorrow bid them march away.
Act 3, Scene 7. The French camp near Agincourt. Enter the Constable de France, the Lord Rambourg, and Orleans with the Dauphin.
Tot, I've the best armor of the world. Would it were day.
You have an excellent armor. Let my horse have his due.
It is the best horse of Europe.
Will it never be morning?
My lord of Orleans and my lord High Constable, you talk of horse and armor?
You are as well provided of both as any prince in the world.
What a long night is this. I will not change my horse with any that treads but on 4 pasterns. Saha, he bounds from the earth as if his entrails were hairs. La cheval volant, the Pegasus. Qu'aille la narine de feu. When I bestride him, I soar. I am a hawk. He trots the air. The earth sings when he touches it. The basest horn of his hoof is more musical than the pipe of Hermes.
He is the color of the nutmeg.
And of the heat of the ginger. It is a beast for Perseus. He is pure air and fire, and the dull elements of earth and water never appear in him, but only in patient stillness while his rider mounts him. He is indeed a horse, and all other jades you may call beasts.
Indeed, my lord, it is a most absolute and excellent horse.
It is the prince of palfreys. His neigh is like the bidding of a monarch, and his countenance enforces homage.
No more, cousin.
Nay, the man hath no right that cannot. From the rising of the lark to the lodging of the lamb, very deserved praise on my palfrey. It is a theme as fluent as the sea, turn the sands into eloquent tongues, and my horse is argument for them all. 'Tis a subject for a sovereign to reason on, and for a sovereign to ride on, and for the world, familiar to us and unknown, to lay apart their particular functions and wonder at him. I once writ a sonnet in his praise, and began thus, Wonder of nature.
I have heard a sonnet begin so to one's mistress.
Then did they imitate that which I composed to my courser, for my horse is my mistress.
Your mistress bears well.
Me well, which is the prescript praise and perfection of a good and particular mistress.
Nay, for methought yesterday your mistress shrewdly shook your back.
So perhaps did yours.
Mine was not bridled.
Oh, then belike she was old and gentle, and you rode like a kern of Ireland, your French hose off, and in your straight strossers.
You have good judgment in horsemanship.
Be warned by me then, they that ride so, and ride not wearily, fall into foul bogs. I had rather have my horse to my mistress.
I had lief as have my mistress a jade.
I tell thee, Constable, my mistress wears his own hair.
I could make as true a boast as if that I had a sow to my mistress.
Le chien est retourné à son propre vomissement, à la très lavé à Boubert. Thou makes use of anything.
Yet I do not use my horse for my mistress, or any such proverb so little keen to the purpose.
My Lord Constable, the armor that I saw in your tent tonight, are those stars or suns upon it?
Stars, my lord.
Some of them will fall tomorrow, I hope.
And yet my sky shall not want.
That may be, for you bear many superfluously, and 'twere more honor some were away.
E'en as your horse bears your praises, who would trot just as well if some of your brags dismounted.
Would I were able to load him with his desert. Will it never be day? I will trot tomorrow a mile, and my way shall be paved with English faces.
I will not say so for fear. I should be faced out of my way. But I would it were morning, for I would fain be about the ears of the English.
Who will go to Hazard with me for 20 prisoners?
You must first go yourself to Hazard ere you have them.
'Tis midnight. I'll go arm myself.
The Dauphin longs for morning.
He longs to eat the English.
I think he will eat all he kills.
By the white hand of my lady, he's a gallant prince.
Swear by her foot that she may tread out the oath.
He is simply the most active gentleman of France.
Doing his activity, and he will still be doing.
He never did harm, that I heard of.
Nor will do none tomorrow. He will keep that good name still.
I know him to be valiant.
I was told that by one who knows him better than you.
What's he?
Mary, he told me so himself, and he said he cared not who knew it.
He needs not. It is no hidden virtue in him.
By my faith, sir, but it is. Never anybody saw it but his lackey. 'Tis a hooded valor, and when it appears, it will bait.
Ill will never said well.
I will cap that proverb with, there is flattery in friendship.
And I will take up that with, if the devil is due.
Well placed. There stands your friend for the devil. Have at the very eye of that proverb with, a pox of the devil.
You are the better at proverbs. By how much a fool's bolt is soon shot.
You have shot over.
It's not the first time you were overshot.
My lord High Constable, the English lie within 1,500 paces of your tent.
Who hath measured the ground?
The Lord Grand Pre.
Valiant and most expert gentleman. Would it were day. Alas, poor Harry of England, he longs not for the dawning as we do.
What a wretched and peevish fellow is this King of England, to mope with his fat-brained followers so far out of his knowledge.
If the English had any apprehension, they would run away.
That they lack. For if their heads had any intellectual armor, they could never wear such heavy headpieces.
That island of England breeds very valiant creatures. Their mastiffs are of unmatchable courage.
Foolish curs that run winking into the mouth of a Russian bear and have their heads crushed like rotten apples. You may as well say that's a valiant flea that dare eat his breakfast on the lip of a lion.
Just. And the men do sympathize with the mastiffs in robustiousness and rough coming on, leaving their wits with their wives, and then give them great meals of beef and iron and steel, and they will eat like wolves and fight like devils.
Aye, but these English are shrewdly out of beef.
Then we shall find tomorrow they have only stomachs to eat and none to fight. Now is it time to arm? Come, shall we about it?
It is now 2 o'clock. But let me see, by 10 we shall have each 100 Englishmen.